Have you ever been on a zip line? How many have? Just one, okay. You're holding on up there before you jump. It's a very scary moment. You don't know what's going to happen. You know you're going to lose control once you take that step. And you don't know what you're going to experience. My suggestion to you is that entering a new master's program is similar to that in many ways. Life is comfortable now. And yet, once you take that step, you don't know what you're going to experience. You don't know if it's going to lead to where you want to go. And you take that leap of faith. My job tonight is to give you enough information that you can leave here knowing whether the MSTC takes you in a direction you want to go or not. I'm Gary Cadenhead. I'm the director of the MSTC program. And it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. Let's see. You probably met Vanessa outside. You'll meet Marty, who just graduated from the program a little later in the program. What's our mission? I would suggest to you that technology commercialization leads to competitive advantage and to the creation of wealth. That's one of the premises that this program is based on. If I were on a soapbox, I would argue with you, or not necessarily argue with you, because I don't know if you disagree, but I would suggest this is an important direction for our country. That we need to capitalize on the intellectual capital that's coming out of our universities and our research institutions. And we need people trained in how to do that. It may be a little bit of an overstatement to say the USA leads in innovation. We are certainly still a leader in innovation. And the mission of this program is to develop professionals that can evaluate which technologies have market potential and to learn how to bring those to market. We're a very focused program. It was created by George Kosmetsky. Any of you ever heard of George? He's getting back there far enough that many people have not. He was the guy that put the UT Business School on the map. He became dean in 1966. At that time, we were a good regional accounting school, and he made us a world-class MBA program. He was mentored to Michael Dell. He was a good friend with Michael's father. When Michael said, "Dad, I'm dropping out of school," his father called up George and said, "I can't reason with this guy. Would you please look out for him?" George went on as chairman of the board and then mentored Michael during those critical years until Michael got his on-the-job training. He's also thought to be one of the architects of the Austin Technologies. All right, what are we about? There's 7 quintessential skills, and some of these you don't get anywhere else. The first one you see here is to identify new technologies that have market potential. We have a proprietary methodology which we teach literally first semester in how to do that. And you practice it 4 times on 4 different technologies in that first semester. With a little bit of luck at the end of that process, you will have found a technology that you think is pretty exciting, and you decide to move forward with it. Second semester, the Capstone Course, if you will, is one in which you learn to write and present a persuasive business plan so you can get this idea funded. Third semester, you learn how to do an operational plan, which is how to launch this technology in either a new venture or an existing venture. Our methodology and approach satisfies both of those. And the goal of all of that is to create wealth. Wealth for your community, wealth for your state, wealth for your country, and wealth for yourself. All right, why should you be here? My suggestion is these are the three primary categories of people that ought to be interested in this program. Aspiring entrepreneurs who want to launch a new venture based on an emerging technology. Corporate entrepreneurs, which is kind of an academic word for entrepreneurs within a corporate framework, who want to introduce disruptive and innovative products within their corporation. And finally, technology transfer specialists who want to assist in universities and federal labs in licensing technologies to business. That's probably what 98% of our graduates do. How many would put themselves in the aspiring entrepreneurs category? Looks like about a little more than half of you. How about corporate entrepreneurs? One in that category. Which company are you with?
Everson Process Management.
And any interested in technology transfer? Good. Yeah. Two of you are. One of our graduates works for the OTC, Office of Technology Commercialization at UT. One of our professors is head of technology commercialization at A&M. So we get that involved as well. All right, what are we about? Well, it's the focus on the how-to. This is an applied program. This is not a theoretical program. It's designed for working professionals. What we mean by that is, if you've looked at our literature, you know our classes are offered Friday evening, all day Saturday. The intent is a design where you can continue to be working full-time and getting your Master of Science in Technology Commercialization in 1 year. You can do that in class. We have a dedicated classroom over at the McCombs School. You can do that online. Our goal is to bring everybody into the classroom. For some of the people, that means being there physically. For others, it means being there virtually or electronically. The online students can be seen and heard. We have two screens in front of the classroom. One screen with the professor's PowerPoint presentation, another screen with the images of the online students. When they speak, their image gets larger, so everybody knows whose it is. They can see and hear everything that goes on in the classroom, and when they speak, everybody in the classroom can see and hear them. This seems like a simple task. I've been director for 4 years, and we have just achieved it to a level that I'm really excited about and interested in showing you. If you would like to come and sit in on a class, Vanessa will work with you to arrange a time you can do that, and you'll be able to see how the online students from, I want to say around the world. It's not quite around the world, because if you're in India or China, it probably entails staying up all night. So there are some time constraints as to when it makes sense to be online. So mostly our Chinese and Indian students come to the U.S. to take the course. Our Latin Americans and Western Europeans can easily do the online and not have to stay up all night. We have a launch week to begin each semester. Okay, I want to underline again, this is a non-traditional graduate experience. You acquire skills that are immediately applicable. The program began in May. Our current students, not this weekend, but the following weekend, complete the first semester. At the end of this semester, they will have the skill of being able to assess whether a new technology has market potential or not. They will have exercised that skill under guidance 3 different times. They literally will be able to sell that skill if they so decide and have time to now. That becomes a part of them. So they're applying what they're learning to develop skills which have market potential immediately. And they work on real technologies. They have a choice of a bunch of UT technologies. If you go to the Office of Technology Commercialization website, there's some 100 technologies owned by UT that have not been licensed that are available. The professor who teaches the course has a comparable 100 from A&M, and he presents those that are available from A&M. And sometimes we have students come in that have their own technologies that they want to assess. All of those are possible in that first semester. So you're working on real, not hypothetical technologies. This program is focused, it's faster, and it's less expensive than a traditional executive business program. This is in the brochure you have, and I won't spend a lot of time on it. Each semester or term has one particular course that's the Capstone Course for that particular semester. In the first semester, it's really this converting technology to wealth. That's the one in which you learn the quick look methodology. You learn how to assess whether a technology has market potential. Basically, you assume that the technology does what the inventor says it will do, and you ask the question, if it does anybody care? Would anybody pay for products or services incorporating that technology? In the second semester, the Capstone Course is the bottom one here, the Art and Science of Market-Driven Entrepreneurship. That's the one in which you write the business plan. A business plan is a document to persuade people to give you money if you're an entrepreneur, or to convince the corporate budget committee to fund your project if you're working within a corporation. The other 2 courses support that. The third semester, the Capstone is the top one. Who does what to launch this technology? So if all goes according to plan, you find an interesting technology first semester, you write a business plan on it second semester, and you have a launch the venture third semester. So you graduate with all of that in hand. This guy did just that. Doug did his 4 quick looks. One of those was based on a drug but applied to a different technology, a different application than it originally was intended. This scientist at A&M said, this particular drug will block macular degeneration. Macular degeneration, there have been some ads on television even recently, I've heard them this week. Macular degeneration is a disease that happens to some people as they age, in which they slowly lose their sight. There are no cures now. There are not even any good substitutes. The best they have entail putting a needle in your eyeball to give some results. So I mean, this is a burning need. He did his quick look on this one and said, this is very exciting. I want to move forward with it. He chose it as the basis for his business plan. His excitement continued to grow. He incorporated in the second semester and licensed the technology from A&M before the end of the second semester. Third semester, he was doing his operational plan, raised $1.8 million just before he graduated. So he was ready to go forward with this venture literally after he walked across the stage with his new degree. He has been close to selling it twice. The most recent time for $35 million. The $35 million deal didn't come through because the company that had offered him that did not succeed in raising the capital to pay him that. So they are still moving forward. That is the valuation they're currently using. They are currently in a deal with a Kuwaitian entity. I didn't realize this, but the chain is logical. The folks in the Middle East, and the Kuwaitians are typical of that, tend to be overweight, so obesity is a problem. Obesity leads to diabetes, right? And diabetes leads to macular degeneration. So they've got a strong need for some kind of drug that will help that, and they are negotiating a deal which will help Macular fund their third set of trials for the FDA, and they will get a particular geographic exclusive for doing that. So this is moving forward, and it's highly likely that they will sell out sometime in the next year or so for, I would guess this figure will go up to $100 or $200 million. So this is our poster boy. Okay, I keep waiting to put it on the poster, but we've got to close the deal before I can do that. But Doug is moving us there. Trey is our poster boy in the corporate world. He has got an amazing set of skills for advancing new ideas within a corporate culture. And he has gotten NOV, National Oil Well Varco, to, in a major way, invest in the MSTC program. They've sent some 25 employees through the program, and they wanted to have even a larger impact, so we have customized a certificate program for NOV, which is also a year-long program, in which they send 55 engineers through that program. We've completed the first class, and we are about in 2 weeks to start the second class. And they are introducing new technologies coming out of this program. Ours was the first UT Austin program to have distance education. There's some in the wings now. Our lectures are webcast live. We've talked about that a few minutes ago. Online students are able to participate actively. You can look at your brochure, and there's a photograph of me with the class in the background showing you how that works. The technology's improved one generation since then, and the online photographs are even better. We're replacing this brochure shortly, and you'll see how sharp their images are with the new technology. And you can see the list of countries from which we have students. Some of those come to Austin, some of those participate online. Here you can see the new technology. This is Brett Carnwell, the head of technology commercialization at A&M, and you can see our current class online right here. And I think that's Robert. Robert was probably the last guy to participate, so his image is the larger one. When somebody speeds, it activates their becoming the large image. Here's a profile. Our class looks a lot like you. There's a wide age range. We go as probably as young as 24. In the current class, we have an anesthesiologist that's 60. So we have a broad range. They tend to cluster in the 30s. You can see the average age is 33. That typically means they have 11 years experience. About a quarter of them have advanced degrees. More than half of those are MBAs. The others are probably masters in engineering or some other technical science. The average GMAT score is 648. That's approximately the top 20%. Roughly 1/3 female, two-thirds, or 1/4 female, 3/4 male, and that's kind of typical of executive MBA programs, executive business programs. About 25% of ours are international. About a third participate online. Our current class size is 62. For what would be your class, we intend to have 100, and we will divide that up into 2 cohorts of 50 each. We jumpstart, I should say, the summer semester. This year, that means April 30th and the first week of May, which is ends on May 5th. This is what we refer to as launch week. It's a chance to meet your teams. We put you into teams for the first semester. We have a Berkman personality profile that we use to do that, along with commonality of interest and age and sex and online. We like to have the online students on teams with the in-class students, so we've got about 4 or 5 variables that determine what leads people into teams. At the end of the first semester, you can select your teams. Sometimes it happens that a group will have a particular technology and they will want to recruit members of their class that go with that technology. We have one technology that has launched, and there are now 6 members of the class that just graduated that have been recruited onto that particular team. So it's been rather significant. I mean, expect that the people that you will be in class with this year will be your friends, business partners, and colleagues over the next 10 years. The graduation date is May 18th. Throughout the year, we have alumni events, lectures, social activities. We have a very active list. Recently, there have been graduates that have put out requests, I'm doing this, and some of the current students have said, I'm doing a quick look on this particular technology. Does anybody know anything about it? And I've just been astonished, that technology questions that I thought were out in left field, there's somebody in the database of 600 or 700 that knows something about it and sends information in. Or if somebody's looking for a job, we can put that information out. There's a student just today that's looking for colleagues in New York City, and Vanessa sent him a list of 3 people that are in New York City and another 7 that are in upstate New York. So it's a very active network to assist our graduates in doing what they want to do. This is a question that frequently comes up. Are you interested in that? How this differs or why you should consider it versus an MBA? Yeah. The first bullet mostly says it all. It depends on where you want to be, where you want to wind up. To be a little bit facetious, if you said to me, Gary, I want to be an attorney, I would say, well, you're in the wrong room. The MSTC does not lead to your being an attorney. An MBA leads in one direction, and MSTC leads in a slightly different direction, not as different as being an attorney, but they're different. So it really is not that one is better or superior or worse than the other. It's they lead to different outcomes, to different end goals. So the question comes back to you, what is your end goal? The MSTC is highly focused and very integrated. 10 courses that are all concerned with commercializing a new technology. The MBA program is a general management degree. It is to help you rise within a large corporation. I got my MBA at Harvard. We were clearly corporate fodder. I mean, that's what we were being trained for. That's how we were taught. It turned out Harvard didn't understand. Most of my classmates 10 years later were being entrepreneurial. But at the time, the Harvard MBA was about preparing people to work in corporate America and rise as high as they could go. Okay, here's some specific differences between the two. The MSTC is about creating wealth. By that, I mean much the way that Michael Dell created wealth here. He created wealth for himself. He created wealth for Austin. He created wealth for Texas. I live in a community where on the top of the hill, there was a husband and wife team that worked for Dell. They were, in the jargon of the 1990s, Dellionaires. Every time Dell stock went up a bit, something new happened to their house. You know, they added a wing. They had added a home entertainment center. The master bedroom got bigger. They did an addition for their parents. You know, that's how the wealth manifested. The 90s were a perfect time in Austin to be a swimming pool company because all these Dellionaires were building swimming pools in their home. That's what we mean by wealth creation here. The MBA is focused on the management of capital within a large corporation. That's kind of where Dell is today. If Dell can grow at 10%, they will be elated, right? So they've transitioned from that early stage wealth creation into the management of wealth, and they seem to be back on track, right? After HP seemed to kick them for a bit, they now seem to be back in the driver's seat. The new strategy of being services and computer boxes seems to be working. MSTC focuses on launching new products. An MBA, you know, the same marketing course, you would focus on managing the product life cycle. So it's the whole cycle versus the early stage. MSTC has courses in technology evaluation and commercialization. Our business law course focuses on intellectual property. The comparable business law course in the MBA program focuses on not getting sued. You know, both have a marketing course. The marketing course in MSTC is on marketing new products that are based on new technologies. In the MBA program, you get a general marketing program that focuses on early stage, later stage, harvesting, all of that together. Entrepreneurship versus general management. Please interrupt me with any questions here. One of these is not better than the other. They're different. If you want to launch a new venture, new technology, that says you ought to be looking seriously at the MSTC. If you want to rise to head of marketing at a large corporation, you ought to be looking at a traditional MBA program and the one that has the best marketing program that you can get into. Fair enough? Yeah.
What's the distinction between launching a product based on a new technology and launching a product based on any other new idea? For example, let's use Michael Dell.
Mm-hmm.
The personal computer already existed when he created Dell. What he found was a new way to bring it to market with increased customization. A new idea, but yet it used the same components in all other computers. So what's the distinction between marketing a new technology and trying to assess any idea as being market worthy?
There would obviously be similarities there, as you suggest. a new technology offers possibilities for getting competitive advantage and keeping it that, say, a generalized one does not. Most obviously, you know, having a patent and trying to protect your patent.
Yeah.
I mean, notice what's happening in the pharmaceutical industry today. Most of the major pharmaceutical companies are within 2 years of losing, you know, their patents expire. So all of a sudden, they're going to be Me Too products. The generics are going to compete them, and they're in serious trouble. And they're trying to figure out, what do we replace them with? So it's looking at issues like that that are unique to this domain. All right, how do you get in? What's it involve? Have to have a bachelor's degree. That's something outside my control. University of Texas won't let you into a graduate program unless you have an undergraduate degree. You have to take the GMAT or the GRE. The GRE is being revised. There's a new GRE that's coming out within the next month or two. My suggestion would be a little nervous about being the guinea pig for the new GRE. It's different, read about it. If you decide you want to go that route, you know, for sure take a new GRE course to get there. The GMAT will stay pretty much as it is. It's up to you, you can do either one. We're also interested in your convincing us you have a strong interest in technology commercialization. And that may be demonstrated by your experience that you worked in technology commercialization, or in your just commitment, I'm ready to do that and here's the technology that I want to pursue. That's important. We have a limited number of positions, and we're looking at people that will take this degree and, back to the early slides, commercialize something that will create wealth for the individual, the community, and the country. We like experience. As you saw in the previous slide, most, you know, the average years of experience is 11, and we have some with 20, 30, and 40 years of experience. So most of the class, at least 90%, will have significant experience. We experimented this past year. We admitted 2 individuals straight out of an undergraduate engineering bachelor's degree. They did superbly. The experienced people in the class liked having them on the team. They had skills that some of the older people didn't necessarily have. You know, familiarity with Facebook, right? So they had a bunch of different skills. Maybe they're more knowledgeable in Excel. So they had some academic skills. The other members of the team had the experience in commercializing technologies. So we will continue to admit some very bright students who don't have much or any relevant work experience, as long as they have expressed a strong interest in technology. Some of the undergraduate engineering students have been working on a technology they would like to take to market. That's what I mean by a strong interest. We do a rolling admissions. What that means is we don't gather all the admissions and then make a decision January 1st. When we get a completed application in, we will make a decision within 10 days or 2 weeks. Holistic application review means there is not one particular variable that is determining. Sometimes, I had a student this past year, not a student, an applicant, who just did awful on standardized tests. I mean, off the scale, awful. You look at her record in her BA, and she also went and got an MBA. You know, she was nearly a 4-point in performance in her programs. But something goes on when she takes a standardized test that it's just what normally the people at the University of Texas would say, we don't accept scores that low. But because she had demonstrated her ability to perform in the classroom And because she had also was already working at a very young age, like 24 or 25, with new ventures. So she had doubly demonstrated her interest in technology commercialization. We admitted it. So that's what we mean by holistic. Our registration process starts September 1, so it will be open. You can go online on the 1st of September and start completing the application. We're going to do an early admissions deadline on December 1st, and my goal is to have at least one cohort come out of that early admissions. My anticipation is that when we get into February, there's going to be a lot of people striving to get into that last cohort. So my encouragement to you is to get everything in prior to the December 1st and get admitted then rather than waiting till later. We need transcripts. As I said, you need GRE or GMAT, a statement of purpose of why you want to be in the program. This is not a long essay. It's probably a paragraph or at most a page. Biographical sketch, your resume, 2 reference letters. Reference letters, you're better off getting somebody that knows you. You know, if Governor Perry has been told by friends of your family that it's a good family and you know, he's sure you're a good guy too, that's wonderful, but that's not nearly as important as somebody that's worked with you and knows you and says, I've worked long hours with this person, and he or she is really a wonderful person. Here's the information. It's a turnkey, $46,000. It includes about everything, as you can see up there. We have an international trip. On the international trip, it doesn't include your airfare to get there. This was the first year that we've had the international trip. We went to London. That was such a good experience. We're going to London this coming January. We're looking at the possibility of going to Asia with what would be your class. So that's still not decided where we will go.
How long is that for?
It's a week.
A week.
So we have a week to start the program in May. We have an August week that starts the fall semester. I would highly encourage being in residence for that. It's not required. It will be online. You can participate online if you like. And then the international trip is required, and that will be going to London or wherever we go in your particular class. All right, you've got the contact information. That's also in the brochure. Let me introduce Marty now, and then he and I will both field questions after he completes. He just graduated 2 months ago.
That's right.
Everybody's in a team in the MSTC program. His team, Vocal Media, won the Texas Venture Labs competition this past February. That meant they represented UT at the Global Venture Labs competition, which is held in May. And it also meant that his team gets a year at the Austin Technology Incubator, and he's literally in the process of moving into there. So,
Right.
Marty?
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, essentially that is kind of a good summary description. So we just graduated in May, and the MSTC program is a unique one. I pretty much knew that I was an entrepreneurial type of a mentality. So as soon as I found the program, where I was sitting, where you guys were, I was like, holy crap, this is exactly what I need. So it was a pretty easy decision for me. And so I realized that I was a little bit out of the norm. A lot of my other classmates were weighing the decision for an MBA or an MSTC or whatnot. But in the end, Gary's right. I mean, it is really where you want to end up. Whether or not you find yourself happy working in a cube or a large company or an office, or if you love talking to people and you love building things and you love that rush of just launching this venture, or studying an idea. So really ask yourself that. So my experience in the MSTC program was phenomenal. It gave me, it put structure essentially to a lot of the things that I already knew about my mentality, about myself, about how I wanted to impact this world, frankly. So it put a lot of structure to that, and it essentially harnessed my raw passion into a direction and put some, as Gary said, put some patented technologies into my hopper and pointed me in the right direction and said, all right, this is how you evaluate these. This is how you look at the market. This is how you talk to customers. This is how you go raise millions of dollars from an angel or a VC. So those types of skills are critical. I mean, whether or not you guys do the MSTC, and whether or not you make that decision right now or tonight or next week or whenever, I can tell you that the skills that you will learn in the program can be applied to ventures, but also can be applied to any other situation as well. So the marketing tactics, the persuasion tactics, the revisions that your business plan takes. That's really what I learned in the program, kind of stepping back from it. Because the first semester we did choose our technology, and Vocal Media is essentially an audio advertising platform that delivers audio advertisements on a VoIP audio stream in an international telephone call. And so with that technology, we had kind of an idea of where we wanted to take it, but over the course of the semester, we must have revised that business plan like 20 different times. And I mean, we came in just all excited, yes, this is gonna work, this is gonna be great, this is exactly what we're gonna do. And so, kind of the humbling part takes in, and the revisions take it. So that's what you'll learn in the program. You'll learn real world tactics to launch ventures. So where we're at right now, going through the Venture Labs competition, that's actually a really cool part of the program. Because what you do is the first semester you choose your technology, and second semester you really start to hit it hard. I mean, you create unbelievable marketing plans, business plans, and you kind of start to seed the operations plans that you'll do in the third semester. But the Venture Labs is really cool because it literally is the best of the best of MBA students and MSTC students, and it's Texas wide. So you'll find a lot of pretty heavy competition there, and people want to win because I mean the Venture Labs is the Super Bowl of business plan competitions. You win Venture Labs and you have bragging rights for statewide essentially, and you get into ATI and you kind of get access to all of those types of really smart people and really driven people. We're excited to be in ATI. Over the last 3 years, ATI has it's Austin Technology Incubator for you guys that don't know. But over the last 3 years, they've raised $300 million for their startups, and essentially there's it's an incubator, so they help you launch. So by winning Venture Labs through the MSTC program, we got the opportunity that we would never have, just coming up with this idea and recruiting people and all of that. So it's been a pretty phenomenal deal. So, but I mean, if you guys have any thoughts, questions, I mean, I'll tell you the real deal. So if you have any questions, what's running through your mind right now? Anything? Yeah, by all means.
What was the biggest aha moment, if there was one, as you were going through the course where you were like, some new lights turned on?
That actually happened in a really simple time. I know exactly when that was. Let's see, what class was it? It was Rob Adams' class. was about market validation. So, you know, upon reading, you know, there was a couple of things that I just said, oh, duh. You know, and what it was when you're developing something, go talk to the customers and say, you know what, I'm developing this. You know, don't give away the farm, obviously, and you know, violate all your IP stuff and worry about that. But I mean, really get their thought. And would you use this? All right, cool. Why? And you can use that with a closed feedback loop to actually develop your product to, you know, to launch capability. So I mean, that was amazing. But it's crazy how many of those aha moments that you're going to have in the program. It's just moment after moment after moment, and then you string them all together, and all of a sudden you feel really, really confident that, wow, I really can do this, and I really will launch this venture. So, yeah.
Let me add on to that,
Yeah, by
Marty.
all means.
One of the things you get out of the program is a particular perspective, and Marty just mentioned market validation. When we were in London, we took a side trip to Cambridge. Cambridge is the Silicon Valley of Great Britain. I mean, they've got marvelous technologies. I mean, it's just, you know, from DNA on down. I mean, they're the sweet spot in the world for technologies. We met there with an entrepreneur who had a technology that he had developed as part of his dissertation that would recognize sounds coming from humans that would indicate they are capable of doing something really irrational. You know, a danger signal, you know, like if you heard those sounds, intervene quickly before something weird happens. Sounds incredibly valuable, right? He had been out of his PhD program for over a year and still had not found a market for his technology. I suggest to you that would not happen to Marty and his colleagues. Going through our program, they would not have moved forward. Local media would not have gone forward unless they were absolutely convinced there was a market for the technology they were presenting. So the program produces a mindset, a set of values, a set of perceptions that are incredibly valued in determining whether you have market validation or not.
That's true.
Other questions for Marty?
Yeah, you have?
So, when you come up with the idea, how supported the faculty, the teacher, how they support you?
That's a good question. Very. You know, some of the pool of technology comes from UT Austin. Some of it comes from A&M, and some of it can come from you guys. I mean, you know, from your own ideas, bringing into the program. So with our situation, you know, we really wanted to validate the market extremely well. So we worked personally with our marketing professor, and she recommended a couple of. She's been, if you are accepted, you'll meet Kate Mackey. She's a crazy rock star. She's been in the industry forever, so she's got a ton of industry contacts. And so she was able to tap into those, you know, just because we asked for help. We said, hey, we really want to do this well, you know, over and above what we're required to do, because we want to make sure it's right. And so you know, she brought in personal contacts and said, okay, you know, here, talk to my 3 friends. I've known them for 20 years. This is how they would be helpful. So, you know, that's the type of support that you're going to have. Now, will that happen all the time with every professor? No. But they certainly will be able to, you know, give you 110% of, you know, their attention. You know, none of them were, you know, up on their high horse and, you know, full of ego. You know, it's not like that. You know, this is a really, you know, it's an integrated program. You know, with the professors and with the ideas. So, yeah, right on. Yeah.
How would you characterize the workload in this program?
Heavy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to BS you.
Yeah.
It's heavy. But, you know, I worked at Apple for 40 hours a week, you know, all the way through the second half of the 3rd semester. And, you know, I was able to balance that. So, I finally said, enough of Apple, well, I'm launching Vocal Media. So you can do it. The program is set up to do that way. Now, that being said, you do have to have some pretty hefty time management skills. This isn't a program that you can waltz through. This is something there is a lot of individual work, there is a lot of group work as well, but you have to compartmentalize your life. This has got to be a commitment for a year. All right, you know what? I'm doing this for a year, and I'm going to rock it for a year, and then I'm going to go back to normal of kind of what your time management was. But yeah, it's doable, it's manageable, but it's heavy.
If you think about, you have class every other weekend, 23 weekends, right? So you basically get out of class 6 o'clock on Saturday, and you're probably ready to have a beer and relax after a long weekend, and you may want to spend Sunday with the family, and then you've got, another 9 or 10 days before class. The expectation of the faculty is probably 3 hours outside of class for each hour in class. Well, you got 12 hours in class, right? So 36 hours. So about 18 hours a week. And if you think about that, if you take one of your off days, you probably, everybody has their different style to do it. But 9 or 10 hour day on one of the weekends, and then sometime during the nights to pick up the other time. We did a total redo of the program 2 years ago because it was the faculty's concern that the workload had gotten too heavy. So we reduced, we combined 4 courses into 2, went from 12 courses to 10, went from all day Friday, all day Saturday to Friday evening, all day Saturday. So there's been a major effort on the part of the design of the program to make it manageable. We're intended to be a program for working professionals which doesn't endanger your health, doesn't endanger your family, your marriage, and doesn't endanger your job. Having said all of that, it is a full program.
Well put, yeah. Who else? Yeah.
So if you end up venturing the business out of this class,
Mhm.
you end up with the same students that you formed the teams with?
Not necessarily. You could, but there's a personal choice there, because there's a difference between the academic team and the business team. It could be the same. It could be different. It could be either, but you do have the choice, as a co-founder, to choose that.
We start you off in a team. At the end of the first semester, which is where the current class is now, they will now pick their teammates that they want to move forward with. Some of them will have had a marvelous relationship with this team and they want to stay together. Others will have a commonality of interest with different members of the class, and so they'll form a new team. Maybe they're interested in biotech, so they get a bunch of people interested in biotech to be on the same team. So at that point, it's up to you which way to go. It is important to be in teams. That's one of the ways we manage the workload, is by having a team which shares the workload. Probably half of your deliverables are group deliverables.
So do you purchase the technology from the university, or does the university get a piece of the venture going forward, or how do you end up getting the?
Yeah,
The
you
license.
essentially license it from the university, because all the technologies that you're gonna look at are patented technologies from some crazy mad scientist in some room somewhere that develops some amazing stuff. So the EU owns that patent. So you'll work with the OTC, like Gary talked about, and you'll essentially form a group, license that to your group from the university. And the EU will take take some equity, you know, depending on their involvement. And, you know, maybe Gary, you can kind of speak
Sure.
a little bit more detail to.
You know, we talked about Macular.
Mhm.
A&M really liked that technology too, so I think they kept 40% of the equity. So the entrepreneur, two of them actually, didn't have to put up a lot of upfront cash, but they put their money into developing the product, and A&M, once it's sold, will get its 40% share, and, you know, they'll be very happy with that. A&M has been quite progressive in coming up with mechanisms for funding their ventures so that they kind of, you know, cash out on the back end, and the entrepreneur doesn't have to have a lot of cash on the front end to get it launched. UT is catching up, but we haven't been quite as creative as A&M has been in the past. But that's changing. We have a new director of our OTC that's been there a year, and he's very interested in getting the technologies out there, so that is changing. Yes?
Quick question, you know, you mentioned some of the roles that one would play with a degree like this. It seems like there might also be a need, based on what you've said, for somebody to help people that don't know how to bring new technologies to market.
Oh, yeah.
Either to the, you know, the general people or the universities that don't have think tanks, or on the other side, for the venture capital firms that are going, how do we assess all these new technologies? We need some expert help in doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Are those opportunities out there as well?
Yes, absolutely. I would put those in the tech transfer specialists.
Okay.
We have a number of our graduates that literally make a living selling the quick looks.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, think if you're a potential entrepreneur excited on a new technology and you're scared to death, I just fell in love with my technology. And I drank the Kool-Aid and I don't know if it's really that good. You know, it'll serve you well to spend $10,000 to have an MSTC graduate look at the technology and tell you whether it's any good or not.
Yeah.
On the second point, we've had two situations. I'll talk about the Dell one first. Michael Dell was in a meeting, you know, and he had his folder here of a new company that he said, I'm really intrigued by this company. He said, but I'm not certain whether the technology's any good or not. I'm nervous. And one of our recent graduates said, well, you know, I just spent the last year learning how to assess new technologies. And Michael said, well, here, assess this one, you know. And so he went off, did a quick look, came back a week later, did a very impressive presentation on this particular technology. Michael was blown away. When our graduate walked out the room, he said, who is that guy? What's he doing? He said he's down in new product development. He said, get him out of there and put him in mergers and acquisitions. Well, for the last 5 years, he's been in mergers and acquisitions. And we've had a similar experience with a young woman at IBM. They moved her into assessing. The skills you learn in this program would be very valuable to the acquisition group. They would be very valuable to the venture capital community. It's hard to get a job with a venture capitalist. I mean, mostly they want somebody that's been a successful entrepreneur and, you know, made $40 million and then bring them in. There are not that many of those around. I know the guys at our local Austin Ventures well, and, you know, they were Harvard MBAs that came down here and started a venture capital firm. Well, I tease them, they wouldn't hire themselves if they walked in the door now, you know. They want these experienced folks. But that's a difficult one to crack, and it's across the country that it's that way. But we're seeing it being cracked in these large corporations that like the skills. Schlumberger, I was talking to them about sending a team, and they say, we don't develop our own technologies, we buy them. We buy them through buying companies. And I said, well, that's where you need our graduates. They need to be part of the team because they can help you decide whether it's worth buying or not. So it's very definitely a skill. What other story? We had a banker in the class 2 years ago. And he was very proud to tell you that he had a nice way of putting it. It was sort of, not I'm independently wealthy, it's I am materially self-sufficient. And so my obvious question was, well, what the hell are you doing here? You know, why are you signing up for the program? And he said, well, my last investment, I made a bad decision on a new technology, and I wanted to learn how not to do that. And about 2/3 of the way through the program, he came up to me and said, Gary, it worked. I've just made a really good investment, and I'm quite confident in it. So that skill is an important in this program. Please do not leave without asking that question that helps you decide whether MSTC is on the trajectory that you want to follow. Yeah.
How do corporations look at this program as opposed to similar programs in other schools?
Well, there are not any similar programs in other schools, so we're selling a new program. Our most successful experience has been with National Oil of Workout. And they are changing the strategy of their company as a result of the experience of their graduates in this program. They have recently announced that they're moving to an autonomous drilling rig, and they're going to launch this in May at the national show that the petroleum industry has. Literally at the trade show, in a booth, having a configuration like you saw Trey Maybank sitting in, they will be drilling an oil well in the continental United States and one on a platform off Africa. From the booth at the trade show with no human beings on either platform. And they see that as the future of their industry. They are currently the technology leader in the oil well services drilling industry, and their strategy is to continue that. IBM was instrumental in designing this program. Kosmetsky brought them in when he had the idea for it, and in the early years, IBM sent lots of graduates through the program. Our champion retired, and his successor didn't have the same joy for the program, if you will, and we're working to rekindle that interest from IBM. So we are encouraging corporate America to send teams of employees into the program. When they send a team, they get to bring in their own technologies. So literally, while the employee students are working on their homework, they're doing exercises, analysis that are directly relevant to their job. So there's a multiple payoff there for the corporation.
The other way around, like corporations send teams from their company, but if student graduates and takes his resume, it says you have an MS UT Austin.
This is new ground for us. We have just moved, we've just completed our first year in McCombs. We were at a research institute previously. It's always been taught by McCombs faculty, but until this past year, it was not a part of McCombs. So we are just now getting integrated into the recruiting apparatus that is McCombs. And that's ongoing. So a lot of people don't know about us and know about jobs. The job board is available to us. Our students, graduates would be very appropriate for positions like product line managers, new product development, technology development. Most of our employees at Dell are in new product development there. Kevin Enders is the good-looking lad here. He is working on developing notebooks there. He engineered by training, mostly new product development and marketing now. He came up with the idea that, say, your notebook would have a little screen here on the backside. So if, rather than trying to turn around and both of you see the screen, he could be looking at the screen, he could flip this around, and the person he was talking to could see a smaller version of the screen. So he likes being both in business and product development. And that tends to be part of the sweet spot or part of the appeal for people to come into the program. It's a business degree for the engineers who want to stay in engineering, but want to be involved in business decisions. And that's about 60% of our class.
You mentioned McCombs recently brought a program under its umbrella from IC Squared.
Yes.
How has that changed it, positives and negatives?
It has been really positive. McCombs is such a better platform. IC Squared has a good reputation, but it's better offshore than it is onshore. I mean, just people coming to the McCombs website, they probably are thinking, I want an MBA. They come to the McCombs website and they see this MSTC and they say, what's that? And then they say, that's more closely aligned with what I want to do than the traditional MBA. So we're getting literally almost daily people inquiring just by having come to the website. Our Dean, Tom Gilligan, has got a major thrust to innovation, venture labs that Marty mentioned is part of that. And you know, we're the crown jewel of the innovation program at McCombs. It's been very, very positive. My smile has gotten much bigger. Yes.
I was wanting, perhaps for you to speak to some counterbalance a little bit, because like I have an affinity for technology development. But do you have stats on what happens to your graduates? Because, you know, if you have 100 technologies here and you have 100 students, I mean, just the law of statistics, not all those can work. I mean, you know, and I'm just wondering what actually happens to the bulk of the people that go through the program over the years, if you could, you know, give a little bit of attention to that.
Yeah, I can't give as good a statistics as you would like. The program started in 1996, and probably for the first close to 10 years, almost everybody in the program was sponsored by their corporation. So they were fully employed and sponsored to be here by their corporation. So it was kind of rising up within rather than launching new ventures. Over the last 5 to 10 years, in particular, the Great Recession has resulted in corporate America not funding their graduates, their employees to go to graduate school. So the current class and Marty's class are the most entrepreneurial we've ever had. I mean, I think of the 60 or so students in the current class, 45 of them want to be entrepreneurs. So I mean, they're going down that path. We're waiting, as in Macular, to have our first major success story. We've got several that are in the wings. Marty's class, Marty's launching, another team's launching, and there are 4 or 5, and maybe the 5th is dependent on whether they get funding or not. So out of 9 teams, 4 for sure, and probably 5 are launching their ventures now. So they move directly into the entrepreneurial group. And, you know, time will tell whether they succeed in it or not, but we're encouraged.
By the way, we'll beat Macular, and Vocal Media is going to be your poster.
He's ready, right?
Just
That's how we
FYI.
want him to do. To give you one statistic that's interesting to me, the 35 or so members of Marty's class produced 9 teams that competed in venture labs. 1,000 MBAs produced 11 teams. Our 2 teams finished first and second in the 19 teams in the competition. I used to run the competition. I was director of the competition for 13 years. It's my sense that we ought to dominate, and this was the first year that we dominated. And I'm looking forward to the 45 member of the entrepreneurs in the current class to do the second stage of the nomination.
I guess what I was asking is what's happening to the other 4 teams or those people?
Mostly they have stayed with their jobs. Some of them are looking for new jobs that would employ the skills that they had in the program. One's going to another graduate school. So it's hard to generalize. It's such a small sample.
If I could add something also, some of them go on to, I think Gary mentioned this earlier, some of them go on to perform quick looks on their own as consultants for other companies, especially for some small businesses and those that are wanting to get into starting their own company. They'll freelance, if you will, their skills for the quick looks.
Some of the entrepreneurially minded that don't have the technology yet that they want to launch, they'll go into what I think of as holding action, not holding action is the wrong image, but they go into areas where, like if you go to work for the OTC, you get to see all the technologies before they're sort of out in the public, so you can cherry pick the one you want to take to market before anybody else sees it.
Just keep watching.
To some extent, we have people at the staff at ATI, and those staff members, if you wanted to go to work for an entrepreneurial venture and not necessarily be the entrepreneur, to volunteer or to get an internship at ATI puts you right in the center of that. And to be at ATI, you gotta be like Marty's team, you gotta have a terrific idea, have an excellent business plan, and then typically, you're not in the market yet, so you don't have sales. You don't have a complete management staff yet, and you haven't raised your capital yet. And that's what you do in the 3 years you're at ATI. Well, if you're one of the people on scene, you're helping this new venture get started, who are they gonna hire? They're gonna hire you. Right? So it's a good springboard into working for an entrepreneurial venture. One of our actually successful entrepreneurs in the current class has just gone into a management position at ATI because he wants to combine a career that would be teaching at the university, working with entrepreneurial ventures, and maybe doing another entrepreneurial venture down the road.
When you licensed your technology, had you already raised some venture capital, or how did that?
Our Vocal Media situation is a little bit different because one of the students in that class owned a telecom company in Dallas, and so the idea for Vocal Media didn't actually come from the university. That was one of those ideas that one of the students brought in. So it's a little bit different than the norm. But ask your question, maybe I can answer the question anyway.
Well, I would know if a university that was licensing the technology would want $30 million or, $1 million for a license, or, where that money would come from. Had you already, gone to your venture capitalist with your business plan,
right,
and said, hey, this is a really good idea, that this will enable us to license and launch, or, how did you?
Yeah, there's a delicate balance in between there. It's different based on the technology, based on the market. There's a lot of moving parts there. So it really does depend on, all of those moving parts. But the OTC wants to get this thing out, so they're not gonna start to erect barriers that students can't somehow break down or surpass. That's not their purpose. It'd be counterintuitive for them. So the OTC is pretty flexible in how they work with you, but at the same time, like in Macular, if they see something they like, they're going to grab it and they're going to say, all right, you know what, we'll give on X, Y, and Z, but you know what, we want 40% of it, and so there's a give and take there. So it's not impossible, but it is different every time. So.
It's the projects like a new chip design that would be the $1 million plus. Most of the projects that would come before us would be nowhere near that expensive. I would say under $100,000 if there's any upfront fee. They're looking for projects. As the previous director said, we don't make any money at all with patents in the file cabinet. We got to get them licensed, get them out there, and start producing revenue. So if it hadn't been licensed for a while, they're here, take it out and go get it licensed.
Do they do like options, or you could take an option for 90 days or a year or whatever, and then you could go out and raise your capital type?
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Something like that would be the way to do it.
Absolutely. Anything else? Yeah.
So just to question a little bit about the international environment in the class, what kind of experience that people may have after the class, because are we gonna focus on the launch department domestically, or we have something to learn from international launch?
It's a large international component. Our international students, we get a lot of international students. IC Squared has a consulting arm that primarily works with developing countries, and they have projects in those countries which is putting into practice what we teach in the program. And typically, it's commercializing technologies in that particular country to promote economic growth. And there have been projects like that in recent years. India, Mexico, Chile, Portugal, South Korea. Interestingly, Kuwait has just signed one. So a number of those. And that's what they're doing. They're applying what's taught in the program. Sometimes, like when they did the India project a few years ago, 2 years ago, they needed really quickly 80 quick looks. Well, you know, a quick look takes about 40 hours. And you can't staff up to do 80 quick looks quickly. So what do? Well, they put out the call to MSTC graduates and current students and say, would you like to work for a couple of weeks? I showed you Kevin's picture. Kevin said, I'll take 2 weeks vacation from Dell and go to India for 2 weeks just to rekindle my interest in entrepreneurship and get charged up again applying quick looks. And that happens, make a little money, pay for the trip, have a great experience. Those are possibilities that are there. Yes?
You have to come into the program with any advanced math skills or financial skills?
No, bachelor's degree. And literally, they come from communications, medicine, business, engineering, communications. I mean, it's all over the lot.
You will have some finance and accounting, just basic stuff. So, you know, if you can deal with Excel and, you know, you can do it.
We have like half dozen MBAs in the current class, and we pretty much spread those around all the teams, so there's some general business skills in that group. Yeah.
Can you comment on the variety of technologies that you usually encounter in the MSTC program? Like, are they mostly biotech or one kind?
Yeah.
Software? Or
It's all across the
All over
board.
it,
And if you can think of a category, they have patents that represent it. In the 100 or so that we looked at before choosing vertical media, it was, I mean, we looked at biotech, nanotech, there was some pharmacy stuff in there, there was some, there was a vibration reducing golf grip, there was, you know, it's a huge range. So, you know, that's one of the cool things about the program, because if you've got an affinity towards biotech, or you've got an affinity towards, you know, I love everything nanotechnology, love it, dig it, you can focus on that. And you can only, you know, look at, all right, I know I want to work with nanotech, that's it. You can go that way. So
the program is really technology agnostic, in the sense that it's up to the students to pursue the technologies they're interested in and apply the methodologies to those, rather than the program pushing a particular technology on the students. And both A&M and UT have such a large buffet of available technologies. You know, you can find almost anything you're interested in, plus people bring in their own.
Other schools don't have this program, would you be able to go to Michigan, Berkeley, and do they have similar technology to the license as well?
Well, they all have licenses to, I mean, all the major research universities have the Office of Technology Commercialization. How open they would be to, you know, license it to Texas, I just don't know. It would probably be dependent on how well your individual skills fit with justifying that they should license your technology. Like Doug of Macular, Doug had 15 years experience commercializing technologies in the pharmaceutical industry. So he had high credibility going to A&M and saying, I can take this product to market. We have cloned our program in Poland, and when the Polish university now offers the MSTC, and we've done the same in Australia. There are some MBA programs that have a concentration in technology commercialization. MIT has a certificate program, and USC has a certificate program. They're none of the first-class universities that have the MSTC degree program.
Which university in Australia was that?
Where?
Which university in Australia did you say?
Adelaide.
Hi, got a question for you. As far as getting a master's degree, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's concerned about getting a degree in something that maybe doesn't become obsolete, but as time goes on, the demand for it falls off. Do you have any stats on what the long-term need is for people with this degree over the next 5 years?
I don't have any stats, I got philosophy.
Yeah.
My sense is that the competitive advantage for our country is in being in the generation of new ideas. And therefore, what we need are people that know how to take these ideas that are coming out of our universities and out of our research labs, LANL, NASA, wherever, and being able to take those to market. So I see an enormous market there that is yet untapped. I'm part of a university effort to look at how do our major state research universities contribute more to technology commercialization. It won't surprise you that I will be suggesting that the MSTC become a major degree across the country.
Okay. With the fact that it's revolving around technology, people here don't have a technology background. How much of a disadvantage are we going to be?
The program is about commercializing technologies. It's not about technology. You know, I'll give you a personal example. I am chairman of the board of a biotech that is bringing to market a fat, obesity attacking drug.
Okay.
I've never even had a biology course. My CEO is a PhD in biotech from Johns Hopkins. His partner is also. They provide the technology. My guidance has been in following strategy and talking to people that want to invest in that. So I'm bringing in the business in, and I suggest myself as a model of how you don't have to be expert in the technology to make a major contribution to the venture that is commercializing a technology. That make sense?
Okay. So basically, we can get away without having.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just another example from my situation. I've had no telecom experience, and with a VoIP stream, adding an audio advertisement to that, I have no idea how to do that. But my business partner does. He's got a really successful company that does that. So it works like Lego blocks. So he's one Lego block, but he needs sales or management, or you plug right into it, and you all have kind of one vision as far as where you want to go. So it certainly doesn't. You're not going to be at a disadvantage for not being in a certain mental mastery, not having experience in some tech. So as long as you've got the desire, you're golden. You're good.
I like to start on time, I like to quit on time. It's time for one more question if you have one. Yes?
So, do you require students to come for an interview before?
We'd like to have either an in-person or by phone interview, and that would be with me. So feel free to contact me either way.
Okay, I was just concerned, what are the different ways of expressing your motivation or your interest in this field? If you
An
don't have
interview would be fine, or in writing would be fine also. Vanessa was outside. I don't know if everybody met Vanessa. She's here in the back of the room. She is our marketing coordinator. She is also quite capable of interviewing you as well, if you'd rather do it with a pretty lady. Don't blame me. Well, thank you for coming tonight. Marty, thank you for being here. We welcome you. We're ready for new students, we're ready to start the class in May.
Registration opens September 1st.
Good.